So we go into match 4 with a pretty healthy 2-1 record after losing our first match of the day. So we lose the die roll against our fourth round opponent, and I am reasonably confident they're on a bizarre deck, but I know they have range, so I'm not willing to put them on a single strategy without having seen a serum powder. So we are going to mulligan this and this. I'm going to keep this. So our first hand was, if opponent was on Bazaar, we did have 2 Wastelands and a Force of Will. The problem is I never really feel like Wasteland on its own is sufficient to deal with a lot of the Bazaar decks. The simple reason being they, can often just drop something like 7 power on the board to begin with, especially if you're on the draw, and then Wasteland will remove the possibility for worse things to happen, but doesn't stop them from that initial kind of spurt. Otherwise, like if they're playing Dredge, they can just slow Dredge. There's just, Wasteland on its own just doesn't cut it. So you need to be able to cast your spells and to be able to assemble some kind of actual game plan. So having said that, this is a very capable hand. We have mana. We have some spells. We are probably going to keep, if we want to hedge that they're on Bazaar, we probably keep something like these 5. Let's see what we do. So I do end up putting away the Bazaar. So I guess I've decided to not hedge on anything. We put away the Wasteland, so I haven't decided to hedge that they're on a Bazaar deck. And this is when we would have really liked to have kept that Swords to Plowshares, because that Vengevine is going to do a lot of damage fairly quickly, and I managed to get lucky and I hit a sword. So this is extremely fortuitous here. So I wonder if maybe we should have swords straight away, instead of letting opponent have another crack. And I think we actually should have fetched our plateau to allow our expressive iteration to be cast next turn. So opponent's getting a lot on the board here. We will force back. Chalice is fine. And we get lucky in that we've got lucky a couple of times. So we hit another expressive. So we hit our next land drop to get an expressive iteration, and we don't hit anything of value. So yeah, this is just not going to do anything, right? By the time we dig, so I suppose we could take. No, we're just not going anywhere. So that's fine. We're going to go on to game 2 here. And obviously we're going to be on the play this time. And yeah, so we had to mulligan the first hand. It just wasn't very good. This hand is completely keepable. We are going to bottom Plateau, I guess. And we're going to try to go Black Lotus into Time Walk Ancestral. So there is some merit in waiting until our opponent's turn to cast the Ancestral, just in case they have Force of Negation, but we're kind of like, we are a little bit incentivized here to just go fast and just try and draw a bunch of cards. So we're going to Time Walk now. And we want to just start going through our library. So I think we will probably bottom a Volk and top a Preordain. And now we're just looking for probably something like a Tabernacle. So we will Preordain again. Lavinia is also very good, so we are going to take our Lavinia. I'm just going to have a quick look at how we sideboarded here. So we've sideboarded by cutting one Bauble, one Probe. We've left the Misstep because they do still play a lot of 1-drops, including Noxious Revival, which can be painful. We cut our Pyroblast and our Force of Negations because we don't really want to be fighting on the stack that much. We're keeping our Force of Wills just for Fury. And so we brought in a Wasteland, 2 Tabernacles, 2 Tormod's Crypts, a Pithing Needle, and a Surgical Extraction. Okay. And so opponents decided to take away our Strip Mine, which makes sense because they want to be able to, you know, run out their Bazaar. And we play our Lavinia. Now, notably, if they'd been willing to, I guess it's really tough for them to Bazaar into, like, just deploy a Bazaar into an open Strip Mine because they need to hit exactly Noxious Revival or another Bazaar. So I guess it makes sense for them to do it in that order. Now we have a Lavinia on the board. And a Lavinia on the board makes it a lot harder for our opponent. They now have to try to basically we've just cut off all their threats except for their Vengevines. So they can't Fury, they can't deploy their Root Wallers, they can't deploy their Hollow Ones. So they need to literally rely on putting themselves in a position where they can find enough Vengevines all in one go. Now, our Merchant Scroll is a little bit disappointing there. It's a Brainstorm only that we have remaining left that we're really interested in, you know, like, we don't really want to grab a Force of Will with a Merchant Scroll or something like that. We just want more card draw, and we don't have a lot of it left. Mostly because we did cut out Dig through time, which I think maybe Dig should have stayed and another Bauble should have gone. But it's not a massive deal here, I don't think, in general. Like, Dig's just, we often don't play for long enough to get to Dig. Notably, we're not attacking with Lavinia. The reason being, there is still a potential for our opponent to be able to, you know, like, if we attack the Lavinia into a potential Vengevine, so if he activates Bazaar, or if opponent activates Bazaar and then manages to like trigger a Vengevine, we're going to be in trouble. So here I think we want to fetch. Oh no, okay, we're going to Brainstorm. I think we want to, yeah, okay, so we're going to take the Tormod's Crypt here, which cuts off Vengevine draws. And here we go, this is exactly what we were playing around the entire time. So our opponent's going to have to Root Wallers counted and get a Vengevine into play, and they're doing this to dodge our Crypt. So now we're going to get to Cruise, and hopefully Cruise is going to find us something like a Tabernacle. No, so we've kind of got Plateau here, so we can basically make ourselves wasteland proof. It just means like whatever combination of threats we draw, we will be able, it just means whatever, we'll be able to cast all our cards. So we'll Cruise. We don't hit exactly what we want, but this is fine. We've got a long way to go before the Vengevine will beat us to death. And now we can start attacking in with our Lavinia. Alright, and we should have attacked here. Just since we can, you know, deal with a Root Waller if it becomes an actual issue. And what we're going to do in a sec is we're going to start using our Lurrus of the Dream Den to start insulating us a little against, like, basically we're excited about the lifelink here because it's just going to help stop the bleeding from the Vengevine. So we're still a little bit behind in this race. Opponent's still able to do us 1 point of damage a turn. If they just start attacking with the Vengevine there, which they do. And now we're going to get to go Third Path Iconoclast. Ruby, Expressive Iteration, Lotus, and attack with Lurrus, and we're starting to look really healthy now. So I guess we will keep a Force of Will. Doesn't even matter. Opponents had enough, which is kind of fair. I think we're way too far ahead now. So on to our game 3. We are going to... We're on the draw, which is going to be much harder. We still want to power out an early Lavinia if we can. It's kind of, I tend to think, our best card in the matchup. Especially if you can go Lavinia and then follow it with a Tabernacle. We're going to keep this hand. It's not perfect, but we do have a Pithing Needle on the play. And depending what our opponent actually hits, so what did they get rid of? So they got rid of 1 Force of Vigor, but they did lose a few green cards along the way. So they probably got something like 2 to 3 Force of Vigor. Can't imagine. Don't know how many Noxious Revivals they play. If they play 4, then they've got 1 Noxious Revival and 3 Root Wallers, and I guess they've still got their Vengevines. But look, either way. I think this is a risk worth taking. Sorry. We're on the draw with a Pithing Needle. You know what? I don't think it even makes a difference. So we are going to... Yeah, okay. So we want to run out our Volk over fetching a white source here because we want to hold up our white source for swords, and we want to be able to play around like a wasteland. Opponent will Bazaar in response. We will name our Bazaar. And unfortunately we get Force of Vigor. So here, what I think I can do is go Black Lotus, Dreadhorde Arcanist, third path Iconoclast, and play a fetch land. Or I could Dreadhorde Arcanist, Time Walk, Brainstorm. Maybe that's better. Opponent has a Force of Will, so I think now we, play out the Iconoclast. Play out the Iconoclast here because this will just start gumming the board up suitably. Okay, and opponent's empty-handed. There's a possibility we were meant to brainstorm there, but I'm not entirely convinced that's correct. So opponents, because they've got the two squee effects, they've now got quite a few cards in hand, which is going to continue to be an issue for us. So we'll go ahead and brainstorm end step in a bid to find more action, and we will start trying to pull ahead here. So I guess I think I like taking the third swords, bottoming the Force, exile a bauble. Okay, I'm a bit sus on this. I guess we do have two swords, and Time Walk is, I don't know, if we can ever get an Iconoclast on the board, Time Walk will be really good. But I guess we do have two swords to plowshares, so it is understandable. Now opponent's starting to get a Vengevine. Chalice is annoying, but not something we can force, I don't think. Okay, and now I think we want to... Okay. I think I would have liked putting a Lurrus in hand and risking being shields down for one turn. I think it winds up being a really high value play, especially when opponent is down to one Force of Will. However, it's paid off for us because we now get to have a Lurrus and a Swords to Plowshares up. And here we get to do a really fun thing where we get to play a Lurrus and we get to recur our Pithing Needle that was Force of Vigor considerably earlier in the match. So now we're starting to actually pull ahead just a little. Like, we're still not in a crazy good position, but... Okay, so we need to force here. Okay, Fury is annoying, but we actually still already have a Needle down. This won't change it, and opponent's gone through, I think, 3 Force of Vigors now, and 2 Vengevines. So if we can find a Lavinia, I think this game is more or less over. Now, obviously, we're pretty threat light overall, so at some point we may be incentivized to swords a root waller. But we do have, like all these cantrips, everything like this, so, we're in a pretty good position to be able to, find something to do with deal with a root waller. So I think we bottom the strip mine and take the Arcanist. We don't really want the strip mine in here, so the reason we might want to strip mine is in case opponent manages to get our needle off the board. And we want to remove the Bazaar, but as it stands right now, we're very far ahead. And I think even if the needle gets removed, we're looking really good. So we attack in. We're going to brainstorm. And we are going to... So we can sit in the tabernacle for a while. Can play out our Iconoclast now. No, we're choosing not to. Okay. So Iconoclast is now on the board. So I guess we were holding up double swords. Now we can start to go off and just, spam the board with tokens. Draw a lot of cards with our Arcanist. And I think we want to bottom both of these. Mishra's Bauble is not an exciting card here, but the one thing that it does do for us is, we just run it out into us, to make another token. So I think opponent at the moment is probably just trying to get enough cards in hand so that they can trigger a Vengevine, or possibly two. Okay, now we have protection for the needle anyway. We're going to hold back our Iconoclast. And we're going to start being able to be in a position where we can win the damage race. Because at the moment, I guess we have a 3-turn clock to our opponent's 11-turn clock. There we go, there's the other Vengevine. Okay, and now Lavinia should really lock this up. Because it means that opponent, if they're discarding things like their root wallers, then the root wallers will also be cancelled. So be counted. Okay, and Preordain, I think here should put it over the top. Surgical Extraction. Which I'm not sure even matters here anymore, because I think we just have lethal on board. So that was our match 4.